city of Bloomfield, south central Iowa, very near Missouri. Bloomfield is a smaller town than Decorah, but the county seat of which county?
Davis.
Davis County. They've had some really innovative things happening in energy over the recent years, and we're going to let them go ahead and give some of the backstory. We're not doing a PowerPoint, so it's going to be a lot more of a discussion, but you can go ahead and give us the feel first, and then we'll jump in. We had a little bit of discussion last night as well, so there might be some topics that those of us who were there last night will pull into this discussion, but without further ado, Chris Ball is Energy Efficiency Director for the City of Bloomfield, and I'll let him introduce his colleagues.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having us up. It's great to come visit other communities. One of the wonderful things about being a newly appointed Energy Efficiency Director is I get to travel around to a lot of other communities and learn from them. And there's some wonderful things happening in Iowa, and obviously some great things happening in Decorah. So we're glad to be here and to learn from you. As Andy mentioned, I was really hoping this could be a discussion, so we'll do maybe 10 or 15 minutes of a little bit of who we are and what we're doing, and hopefully we can get a discussion rolling, because we hope to learn as much from you, and maybe we can bring some new ideas to the table as well. With me are Doug Dixon. He's the president of Bloomfield Main Street. What, for life? I don't know, he's been there quite a while. And on my left is Warren Halverson, and Warren is, he's actually from a neighboring community, Keosauqua, but he's serving in Bloomfield as an AmeriCorps Vista member. And that came about as part of our energy project. So just a little bit about how we got to where we are now. And this may sound like, well, what are you talking about? What's that have to do with energy? But I'll get there, I promise. In 2005, Bloomfield Main Street began a project to figure out how we can do a streetscape project in the community. And so we brought in Trees Forever and did a community visioning process. We spent about a year speaking with community members, working with landscape architects, and doing some design work, and really trying to put together what we thought would be a great enhancement to downtown. As Andy mentioned, we are a county seat, and we're a very traditional county seat. We've got the courthouse in the center, surrounded by our business district. The entire business district is on the National Register of Historic Places. So, and you can pitch in any time along the way.
Long story short, when we tried to push the agenda with the city council, we were met with a lot of resistance. Why do we want to do this when the buildings are falling down? So we did a 180 and immediately started working on the building. We were successful with some grants. And iJobs CDBG grants, upper story housing projects. So we reinvigorated the squares in the building, and then we put the streetscape back on the agenda.
Right, and we did that in fall of 2013. I was going to say, I'd been through the initial streetscape process, and somebody had the wise idea, well, Chris, would you like to lead the new streetscape process? And I said, not a chance. But I heard about West Union, and some of the stuff that they had done there, particularly the district geothermal system that they put under their streetscape when they did it, what, 4 or 5 years ago? And so I said, oh look, I'll take it on if we can do something like that. Just something that, I don't want to put in, I'm not interested in redesigning streets and sidewalks. And it was interesting, the city clerk, he said, there is no way this community is going to consider district geothermal. And it turns out, that was the thing that got people fired up. They really were interested in doing something innovative. They liked the idea of doing something in Bloomfield that wasn't widely adopted, right? And so we began that process. We worked with a couple of creative architects and landscape architects, and we've got that process moving forward. We hope to go to bid maybe this summer on that project and get it going. But in that process, one of the state project managers for my EDA, the Iowa Economic Development Authority, Jeff Geertz, who had worked at West Union quite a bit, got to know us. And then in getting to know us, he suggested maybe we could do some other things. in Bloomfield that were energy related besides just the district geothermal system. And so one of the first things Jeff did was ask if we'd be interested in working with the Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities to do a study on whether we could be energy independent. Honestly, most of us had no idea what that meant, but they said, hey, we've got some free money and a free study, would you be interested? We went for it.
We're the community that doesn't know how to say no when it comes to grant offers.
Right. And so, yeah, I guess what you need to know is Bloomfield is a municipal utility, has a municipal utility. So we, the city operates the utilities. We don't have a separate board or anything, it's just the city council that is the oversight. And we serve electricity, gas, water, and manage the sewer system. And we also contract out to provide waste removal. That allows, having a municipal utility gives us some unique opportunities. One, we have access to all of the energy data. So I can pull up Doug's house, it's public information how much energy he uses, gas, electricity, the whole bit. So when you start talking to people that are interested in studying energy usage in communities, you know, you've got some great opportunities with the open data. And that's one of the reasons this study was able to get done, the IAMU study. So they did two studies. They looked at Bloomfield and they looked at Algona. And I haven't looked at Algona's results, but they concluded that Bloomfield could in fact be energy independent within 15 to 20 years if they took this series of steps towards energy efficiency and some renewable energy and other types of generation. Along the way, some people had indicated that one of these two communities would get to move forward and there'd be some financial and technical support to help them achieve energy independence. So we kept waiting. Who are they going to pick? Who are they going to pick? Finally, I pulled Jeff Geertz from my EDA aside and I said, when are you going to make a decision? He said, we won't. So what do you mean you won't? He said, we can let you guys figure out who's going to move forward. Whoever grabs the bull by the horns and starts doing something, then we'll get behind him and help him out. Well, that was kind of all of the encouragement we needed, right? We said, well, we better do it before somebody else figures that out. So the point there is, you know, it's not just having somebody bring opportunities to you, but you have to go out and seize those opportunities as well. And when you get into a dialogue with officials from other communities or at the state level, make sure it's a dialogue. Don't let it just be a push down to you. Make sure you're asking questions and finding out what resources are available and how do you move forward. Because in our case, one thing led to another, that led to another, that led to another. So we moved forward with as a result of that study, the IAMU Energy Independent Community Study, two things happened. One, we applied for acceptance into the Rocky Mountain Institute eLab Accelerator for last year, which is an invitation-only workshop. They bring together groups from state level, from community level. It's a mix, but there were about 10 teams that came together out at Sundance Resort in Utah, and they got to work on their projects. And they provided all kinds of assistance, from technical assistance to conflict resolution, marketing, communications, the whole gamut of what you need to well, it's an accelerator. How do you jumpstart this team and get them moving forward? So that was one thing that happened, and at the same time, we applied for an Operation AmeriCorps grant. And that Operation AmeriCorps grant brought together 3 streams of service from AmeriCorps that included AmeriCorps State, which is very much like your Green Iowa group that's going around and doing energy assessments and weatherizations, and then 3 VISTA members which work more on capacity building. They're not going out and doing the direct service, they don't go into homes, but they help us improve our volunteer base. How do we identify opportunities? How do we do a better job communicating within the community? And then
School outreach.
yeah, school outreach.
Tell them what they did.
Yeah, so yesterday they went to, was it for MLK Day, they went to the middle school and worked with all of the 7th and 8th grade science classes to make door graft stoppers. So, you know, they just filled tubes of material with rice, and I think they made 236 door graft stoppers that they're going to donate throughout the community. But it was a great way for the program to get exposure, for students to learn about energy and energy efficiency, and we're hoping that that'll spread up, you know, that the kids will go home, they'll talk about what they did. And, you know, anytime you're doing a service project in the school, of course the media is there, and so it was on the TV, it was on the news last night and the whole bit. So it's a great way to get some exposure. You threw me off.
Sorry.
Sorry. Oh, and we're, the third stream of services, NCCC teams, and I see a patch back there, right?
Oh yeah, I've served in NCCC.
So we haven't had anybody come yet. Could you tell us a little bit about what NCCC does?
Yeah, sure. So NCCC has been around for about 21 years now. It is a national service organization that's focused on team-based service. So we typically pull from 18 to 24-year-olds, and they do a variety of projects throughout the year. For instance, I was out in Colorado last year. I did 3 different projects, anywhere from an education project to working with a nonprofit in Denver, and then wildland firefighting. So you do a variety of projects throughout the year, but the focus is team-based national and community service.
And Ryan, introduce yourself. Is
Oh.
currently part of our.
My name is Ryan Hall. I'm currently serving with the Green Iowa AmeriCorps team. This is my 3rd year doing AmeriCorps. These are some fellow teammates of mine. Yeah.
Thanks. So what we're hoping to utilize, so they bring the team members, what, 8 to 12 people, somewhere in there?
And NCCC, yes, that's right.
So they come in for 6 weeks at a time, and they're going to do, or at least that's what they're going to do in our community. So we're trying to figure out how do you keep 10 people busy for 6 weeks at a time. So a couple projects that we're looking at, retrofitting all of our fluorescent bulbs in our middle and elementary schools and changing them out to LEDs. And then we've been hit pretty hard with emerald ash borer in our community, and so we have a lot of dead and dying ash trees. So we're going to do a tree inventory, and then talk at the same time, hope to tie that into a conversation about, you know, just how do trees impact your energy usage, and so correct planting, the right species diversity. And so we hope to hit every homeowner in some way in terms of either through the inventory or talking to them about replanting. That's how we intend to use NCCC.
I'm going to back you up a little bit and talk about just briefly the IAMU study. First off, identified, you know, sort of a roadmap of how to get to that energy efficiency in 15 years. One of the first things, the 23%, was just insulation energy efficiency measures at a small level, the home basically, which launched the reason we applied for the AmeriCorps grant.
Right, yeah, so. Right, so obviously you want to reduce your energy consumption before you start looking at production, right? So that's our first goal. Our AmeriCorps team members, their goal is to reduce residential energy consumption in Bloomfield by 5% over the next 2 years, which is a pretty aggressive goal, but we have about 1,200 homes in the community, and our goal is to get into 800 of those homes and do energy audits and do weatherization in at least 400 of those homes. So, you know, I think we've been up and running since November and been in 60 or 70 homes and done weatherization in, I think, probably 35 of those homes. So one of the things we're looking for here is, as we've done those energy audits and done some weatherization, what we're doing right now is not going to be enough to hit that 5% mark, right? So what other techniques have you learned, have you used to help bring down energy consumption? We really want to hear your ideas on that. You know, of course, the IAMU study identified some ways that we could do better or be more energy efficient, and we've learned some other techniques, but we want to hear what's working for you, because it's one thing to hear what they're doing in New York and Vermont, but to hear what somebody else in Iowa is doing, you may run into similar issues, your housing stock and so on and so forth. So I want to go back to, just briefly, and then we'll start opening it up, but the Rocky Mountain Institute eLab Accelerator, I want to talk just a little bit about that. We took 5 people out there. We took one of our design team members. We took Jeff Geertz from the state with us, and Doug went, and I went. I guess there were 6 of us. A city council member, no, 5. Right, city clerk and a city council member. And when we headed out to Utah, we were under the assumption we're all on board, we're ready to just jump in and let's move towards a net zero community. right? That's what we were gonna do. We were gonna lay it out, we were gonna get the plan in place, rock and roll. And the first conversation that the workshop leadership had was, we're gonna talk to you about conflict resolution. And we looked at each other and said, it's not a problem with us, we can pretty much skip over that section. Yeah, right. I think we were arguing in like 15 minutes, you know. I had not yet at that point been hired as the energy efficiency director. I had a little bit of history. I tried to sell some solar in Bloomfield. So the city council had seen me as a solar sales person, right?
An adversary.
Right? But then I also helped write these 2 grant applications that, you know, to go to the ELAB Accelerator and for the Operation AmeriCorps grant. And so the city clerk is telling me all along the way, we're gonna hire you. Just don't worry about it, we're gonna hire you. And then all of a sudden things got complicated. And we go out to the ELAB Accelerator, and one of the things I learned is there was a lot of, you know, people were suspicious of my motives. And I think we had to settle that. We also learned that net zero was not a term that was going to work in Bloomfield. It had, for lack of better words, too much of a granola feel, right? So it was. Davis County is along the Mormon Trail, and so what happens is you come through Illinois, you go across the Mississippi River, you go across the Des Moines River.
Tell them the new nickname.
Right. So we're known as the Hairy Nation. And one of the reasons we're known as the Hairy Nation is because as people are coming across the Mormon Trail, they've gone through the Mississippi and the Des Moines River, and then they start hitting the prairie, and they're like, this is hard. And they stopped. Not all of them stopped, but the ones that stopped, that's who we have, right? And we still have some of those people. And it was known as the Hairy Nation because the visitors that came there saw these scruffy, you know, independent, right? Yeah, you can get it.
Yeah.
It's also the place, there was this event called the Honey War. And the Honey War took place on the border between Missouri and Iowa. What it was in about the last few miles of Iowa, what is now Iowa, there was this group of Hairy Nation people. And whenever the tax collectors came down from Iowa to collect some money, they claimed to be residents of Missouri. And of course, when the Missouri tax collectors came, they were residents of Iowa. And so eventually, there were actually militia that were sent to settle this dispute. There was no battle, but, you know, I mean, that just tells you about our group of people and kind of the personalities and who we are. So, independent, pioneering, do-it-yourself. So that's
Pragmatic.
Right. And so that's kind of how we changed the term from being a net zero community to being an energy independent community. We felt it would resonate more. And you wouldn't think those terms would matter, but when we talked about net zero, nobody was paying attention. When you talk about energy independence, now people are piling on. So, and that was one of the things that they had at the ELAB Accelerator was people to help with communications and marketing and that sort of thing. We came out of the accelerator with basically 5 goals. And one was to hire an energy efficiency coordinator. Hello. To renegotiate our wholesale power supply because we don't currently generate power. We buy all of our electricity, we buy all of our gas, and we're at the end of a year-long process to renegotiate that electric power supply. We were going to lobby for some pilot projects to get done in Bloomfield, just to bring more capital and demonstration and that sort of thing. And then to start a community visioning process, which really has been one of the hardest things to do. It's kind of a community planning and visioning. We've learned that this group over here is going to town on this project, and this group's going to town on this project, and there could be opportunities for them to overlap and work together, but we don't.
They have no idea.
Right, they don't even know what's going on. So we've started to try to bring together groups from all over the county and to share ideas and learn what each other's doing. But I don't know, if you have any advice on how to do better countywide visioning, we're really interested in learning. And then the fifth thing was to really build relationships with council members, schedule one-on-one meetings. You know, I think we've done a great job on at least 4 of those goals. Our relationship with council members has drastically improved from a year ago. We've renegotiated our electric contract. We've got the, like I said, we've started the community planning and visioning process, and what was the other thing? Lobbying for, we haven't really lobbied too well yet for the pilot projects. We're still working on that. But I don't know, I've kind of given you a brief overview and gotten a lot of different directions, but I'd really like to hear, we'd like to hear what you're doing. You know, if we could get a little conversation going, that would be really beneficial to us. Hopefully beneficial to you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So just a quick recap, you got involved, you had some local things going on with the green streets, the streetscape work. You got into the IAMU study, which led you to the Rocky Mountain, and that pathway started waking people up.
Right.
And started building a roadmap, or at least a vision that says, yes, you could be energy independent as a community of 2,600.
2,600.
And a big part of that is because you do have a municipal utility as well, that means all aspects, electric, gas, water,
Right.
sewer. And so maybe just a couple more words on the role that the utility is playing, or not playing yet, but that role in the partnership that you're building.
Sure. So yeah, so the way our structure is, so the municipal utility operates within the city government. It's pretty much managed by the Director of Public Works. And so the Director of Public Works reports to the City Council, and I report to the City Council, and we operate in separate departments. So we're kind of set up in conflict, and I think that's on purpose, you know, to give a little push and pull. But that electric utility generates, it's a profit center for the city, and we have typically used those profits to supplement streets or other activities, right? But it's enough that we could potentially use some of those profits to invest in solar or wind or other types of things. We have several different projects that we're looking at right now in terms of smart meters and a solar project, and also some much more high-end stuff where we would look at biogas production using our wastewater facilities, or food recycling, food waste recycling, and whether we can do composting and maybe biogas generation with some of that. But that utility, as Andy mentioned, it gives us a lot of flexibility in how we work. Because it is a profit center, we have some additional dollars that come in. The data is public, so that really helps us to work with other partners. There is some resistance. We started going in and working on creating energy efficiency, doing energy efficiency projects, and the guys that are working on the lines, they're not too excited about that, because all they see is, oh, well, if you guys are successful in getting the city's energy consumption down by 23%, you're cutting 23% out of our profits, right? And now you're looking at eliminating my job potentially. Well, I don't think that's a path that'll go. I think what we're going to end up seeing is a change in the services and the level of service that we provide. And I think that those guys are going to be plenty busy, but just may not be doing what they've been doing. Yeah, and then your structure is that you're an Alliance-served community in towns.
In town,
And
and the
then-
towns, and then the rural areas are the RECs, which we have folks here from the RECs. And you partner with your
Yeah.
your staff runs the infrastructure locally, and then you partner with the REC for wholesale power purchases.
That's correct. So we buy all of our power from the REC, and but we have our own distribution and billing system. So we manage the entire infrastructure within the city, and then we do all the billing and collections within the city.
What's your vision for replacing the purchase power from REC?
Yeah, so like for instance, right now we're looking at a solar generation facility that would replace part of that. In that IAMU study, it identified solar and wind as maybe getting halfway there, and then looking at other types of generation that may not be renewable, including high efficiency gas generation, or maybe partnering with, for instance, the hospital may be a good candidate for a combined heat and power system that, you know, they might produce some excess power that could feed back into the community. We haven't identified the entire path, and as I'm sure you're aware, prices are changing on everything every day, right? Solar prices are dropping, gas prices are dropping. So we've not yet committed to being 100% renewable in that power generation, but I think it's kind of in the back of the mind, if we can make it work financially, then we will. Because we've purchased all of our power from the REC for so long, we, you know, our power costs have been a little higher than, just by the nature of, they're buying it from another entity that's buying it from another entity, and so we've got these layers of not profit, but margins that have been put on top of it. And so our wholesale cost is a little higher than many communities, and we don't currently own any generation. I mean, we have local generation, but we don't use it. We have some old diesel generators that we can run. But so we're not invested in something that we have to recoup that investment. And because our wholesale price is a little higher, we can, it gives us a little more latitude in selecting other renewable sources of energy. Does that answer your question? We don't know the full answer, but I guess that's the short answer. Yes?
How much does it cost you to buy the power?
So it's roughly 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour. It varies based on, you know, we have a demand and energy pricing components, and so depending on what our peak was and what the power costs were, but it's roughly 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour.
And then what do you figure for maintaining the lines?
It's between 2.2 and 2.5 cents on our distribution network, and that's not just that also includes administration. So it's handling it, the distribution and administration. I don't think it includes me though.
And then your billing price?
Varies from about 10 cents for the industrial customers up to 12.5 cents roughly for residential customers. So, and it sounds like we have a lot of margin. We do have more margin right now. Part of that was in our negotiation over the last year with for our wholesale power. Yes?
How big is the geothermal system, and what size would give you the maximum efficiency of a geothermal system?
Yeah, so while that led us down the path where we are, right now it looks like we're going to nix the geothermal system. And the reason is that we simply don't have the funding. It would add about $1.2 million to our project, and we maybe could come up with it, but the council seems more interested in putting that money into solar than into geothermal at this point. With gas prices where they are, it's a hard sell on geothermal.
Yeah, that's what I've seen in geothermal, the return on the investment, I mean, the energy out versus energy in, when you look at the whole system, isn't that great, especially when you're talking about gas as cheap as it is now.
Right.
Those kinds of economics. And it's hard to know where they're going to be in the future, so.
Sure.
what do you
Yeah, it's
do?
funny how it pushed us to where we are, it got set aside.
Yes,
So do you offer your customers net metering?
we do. Since we've had interconnection agreements in place, it's always been on the books that we offered net metering, but it took our council about a year to figure out that that's what they had.
Is there a size limitation on that?
I believe we go up to 100 kW system. We'll do net metering, and beyond that, it's essentially net billing. You know, at our cost, not avoided cost. So we've been told that we could go all the way down to like 3 cents with avoided cost back to our are a producer generation facility, but it's just not what, you know, we figure if we can buy power at the same rate from anybody, it doesn't really matter, so yeah, net metering up to 100 kW. Yes?
Do you have any plans for a community solar array where people who cannot afford to put panels on their home can buy in at a rate they can afford?
So it's something that we're looking at. It's not the highest priority for the council at this time. It's something that we continue to discuss, and I think it could work its way into our future, but it's not there at the forefront right now.
And you might mention our visit with Cedar Falls on the way up
Yeah, so on our way up, we stopped by Cedar Falls, and they've had a lot of success with their, I think they said they were at 99% subscription right now, so.
And let me jump in on that, Chris. Next month, Energy Breakfast, Camiar and Cheyenne will be here. He's the director of Center for Energy and Environmental Education at UNI, and he'll be here and give us all the details on their community solar, among others.
So when is that?
Next month,
Oh,
third Tuesday in February.
Thank you.
Some of us are really interested in the community solar, but we just haven't, you know, right now, it's a tough jump from saying we're gonna take the margins versus giving those back, you know?
You know, it's also interesting because for an individual household, business, whatever, they may want to do it themselves to have their own economic return. For many others in a community where we talk so much about local economics and keeping the dollars local, folks may be perfectly happy if their local utility, be it a muni or an REC, has that generation in their pot, because that's still locally owned.
Right.
And in your case, if the muni starts building solar, you own it, you all own it.
there. And you might talk about the REC.
Yeah, and well, the REC, Southern Iowa Electric is our rural electric provider, and they are right now in the process of putting into community solar. So it's interesting that,
I can't check.
yeah, we kind of, I thought we'd get there first, but, you know, they're gonna beat us to the point. But that's good. Their community solar array is gonna be right outside our city limits, so it's still gonna help build the whole energy independent community concept, I think. And for them, they pay avoided cost, which is down to about 2.5, 3 cents, I think, on if they put in solar there. So the community solar is really a way for them to get net metering. It's, although they wouldn't call it that, but essentially that's what it will be. You'll get the power output of that.
Talk to them a little about the negotiation with them and how RMI led to. No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
So does your REC get their power mostly from coal plants?
They do. Yeah, I think their primary power provider is down in southern Missouri coal plant. Yes?
You talked initially about the homes that you were insulating and so forth, energy efficiency. How about the businesses?
Yeah, so we don't currently have a good plan to assist businesses. We're working on that.
The public buildings though.
Yeah, we did. We have reviewed had all of our public buildings have had an audit, and we're working on things to make them tighter. The AmeriCorps group, you know, they're not supposed to go into businesses in order to, they're focused on poverty issues and people of need, you know, whether it's elderly or need assistance, whatever. So we just haven't got that component yet. It's one that we're adding to the mix down the road. We have had a commercial lighting, or we last year put in a commercial lighting rebate program. And you know, like I said, we're a fairly small community, and I think that the city council, that was one of their priorities. As soon as you take office, you need to push this commercial lighting thing, and we put it out there, and within 4 or 5 weeks, we had $30,000 worth of rebates applied for, and I think they were blown away by the demand. And so they are not approving any more applications until next fiscal year, because they hadn't budgeted for it or anything. I think they thought, oh, there'll be a few $100s worth of applications, so they were shocked. So there's clearly an appetite, I'm saying, right? Yes, sir.
So the heating for that business district heating of
Yes.
geothermal, not sure how that's worked out in West Union. And really heard the full story on that.
Economics are
But,
I
but
think-
the concept of geothermal heating, it's always available when you want it, just, you know, it's the most cleanest power way of providing heating, other than maybe, and then you maybe could put solar thermal next to it, except that that's not always fully dependable, so you need a auxiliary. But, so, it's worth continuing that process of.
And I think we will look at, maybe some incentives at the residential level for geothermal. And as we look at future street projects, it's one of those things we'll continue to evaluate, you know, depending on where prices are and where the technology is and down the road. We haven't, our district has alleyways behind all of the businesses, so we haven't eliminated the possibility for a district geothermal system. We've just changed the potential location.
Well, and geothermal or not, district heat and cool has tremendous opportunities for efficiency, whether it's geothermal power, other renewable power, or starting with efficiency gas and then going towards renewable, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
And I think what we've seen, I do geothermal wells, when you have a grid big field, and then you're going out to quote, going out to bid, the costs are extravagant because you're subjected to a lot of different parameters that go into building that one municipal field. It's kind of like buying a bus that seats 50 and all over or something.
Right.
It doesn't start to pay off until you fill the bus. Whereas if you have that same amount of geographic space and it's good producing thermal conductivity, you can have 10 4-well systems rather than 140, and you're going to see better utilization of green space. You're going to see the ability for people to minimize the cost over those different smaller well systems, especially in the development of new